The story will be told from the perspective of the main female character. Man at the door didn't even move his face. His expression stayed flat while his eyes slowly traveled from my shoes to the top of my head. Then he lifted a single finger and pointed toward the back entrance like it was the most obvious thing in the world. He told me workers used that door. That was the welcome I received for the party celebrating my sister getting engaged. I probably should have corrected him. I should have stopped and explained that I wasn't there to carry trays of food or refill people's glasses. I could have told him he had made a mistake. But instead I kept moving and let the quiet embarrassment sink into my skin, the way a cold wind creeps through thin clothes on a winter night. The truth was simple. The rich and polished family my sister was trying so hard to impress had no idea who I actually was, and when they finally learned the truth, that was when the real entertainment would begin. My sister called me 14 days before the big evening. She used that same careful tone she always uses when she reminds me to wear something appropriate for our family pictures. Her words rushed out quickly, like she was worried I might interrupt her before she could finish everything she wanted to say. She told me the engagement celebration was going to be elegant. Important, the kind of event people talk about for weeks afterward. She said the room would be filled with successful people, the type who understood what achievement and status looked like. Then she added, just this once, try to look like you actually belong to this family instead of someone who wandered into our photos by accident. She didn't say it with cruelty. She wasn't trying to insult me, and somehow that made it worse. She honestly believed she was helping me avoid embarrassment later. I told her I would be there. She didn't ask anything else. She never does. As long as I can remember, my sister has always cared more about appearance than reality. When we were children, she would stop to straighten a crooked picture frame before she hugged anyone hello. Every Christmas, she made sure we wore matching clothes so the photographs looked perfect. She memorized the names of every wealthy family at our school. She practiced speaking like someone who grew up surrounded by money long before she even understood what it cost to live like that. My parents never told her to stop. If anything, they encouraged it. To them, she was the child who would one day have a bright and impressive future. I was simply the one they hoped would eventually figure things out on my own. When I moved away from our hometown 4 years ago, they didn't ask many questions. They never wondered where exactly I had gone. They didn't question why I suddenly became harder to reach or why my schedule always seemed full. They assumed I was working on some strange internet business, one of those unstable modern jobs they could never properly explain to their neighbors. I allowed them to keep believing that. It made life easier for everyone. That evening, I walked through the hotel kitchen wearing worn denim jeans and an old hoodie. I moved between cooks and servers like I belonged there. Nobody questioned me. No one stopped me to ask who I was. One man from the banquet team even handed me a stack of neatly folded napkins because he assumed I was part of the staff. I accepted them without correcting him. I have always been good at slipping through spaces unnoticed. Upstairs on the main floor, my sister was probably standing in front of a mirror practicing her polished smile. She was likely adjusting the expensive dress she had spent weeks worrying about. This party meant everything to her. She wanted it to prove that she was worthy of the family she was about to marry into. She told me they came from old money. The kind of people who owned vacation homes and spoke proudly about their family history. The type who discussed heritage like it was a priceless heirloom. She never mentioned how quickly wealth can disappear when people don't manage it carefully. She didn't realize the cracks in their perfect image had already begun to spread. I waited by the back elevator while the kitchen roared with noise behind me. Clattering pans, shouted orders, the sharp smell of spices and heat. As I stood there, a strange feeling settled deep in my chest. Something told me tonight would ruin more than just a party. The shiny life my sister wanted so desperately was about to collide with a truth none of them were ready to face. And somehow I already knew exactly how that collision would change everything for all of us. The elevator doors opened on the party floor and the sound hit me instantly. It wasn't joyful music or laughter, it was tension. A thick, nervous energy stretched tight across the room like a wire ready to snap. My sister stood in the center of the chaos. She was giving instructions to workers in a voice that sounded both nervous and commanding. She adjusted the same centerpiece for the fourth time. Anyone who stepped too close received a sharp comment. She was trying to force the room to match the perfect picture she had created in her head. I stayed near the food station so she wouldn't notice me. She pointed angrily at one of the tables. These tablecloths have wrinkles. They didn't have wrinkles earlier. Why do they have wrinkles now? A waiter apologized even though the cloths looked perfectly smooth. My sister never looked in my direction. Maybe she simply didn't see me. Or maybe she didn't want to. Nearby stood the family of the man she was marrying. They carried themselves with the calm confidence of people who believed the world existed for their benefit. His mother studied the flower arches with half-closed eyes. She pressed the petals between her fingers the way someone might test the freshness of fruit in a market. His father stood behind her, pretending to be interested, while quietly checking his watch again and again. The groom's younger brother leaned against the bar, scanning the room to see who was paying attention to him. I tried to pass quietly, but he noticed me. He walked over wearing that smug smile some men use when they are convinced they are attractive. "Working tonight?" he asked. His gaze dropped to my worn sweatshirt. Before I could answer, he pulled a few bills from his wallet and folded them between his fingers. "If you're not too busy later," he said softly, "you can bring a drink to my room." I didn't take the money. I didn't respond to the bait. I simply turned and walked away. Behind me, he muttered quietly, "Girls who work here are always so sensitive." The words felt like someone pressing on a bruise. Inside the kitchen, everything was falling apart. The head chef paced in frustrated circles while complaining about the last-minute changes. Just 2 hours earlier, my sister had requested a completely new menu. Then she changed it again. And then again after that. The staff no longer looked angry. They looked exhausted, defeated. One server sighed heavily. "If she sends this dish back one more time, I'm quitting," another whispered. The groom's mother already complained that the bubbles in the champagne weren't the right shade of gold. I stood at the prep station peeling shrimp. My hands moved automatically while voices drifted through the swinging kitchen doors. "Did you hear what the dishwasher said?" someone asked. Another voice answered quietly. The groom's mother tried to pay one of the sound technicians to fix the audio later. Fix it how? Like make someone look bad? My stomach tightened. I didn't need to guess who that someone was supposed to be. Suddenly the kitchen doors burst open and a manager rushed inside looking pale. He leaned close to the chef and spoke in a low voice. "The $95,000 payment didn't go through." The chef froze. "What do you mean it didn't go through?" "It bounced this afternoon." The chef slowly set his metal spoon down. "So you're saying there is no money in the account?" The news moved through the kitchen like a cold wave. I felt the air leave my lungs. I wasn't surprised. I only felt a quiet confirmation of what I already suspected. Every strange detail from earlier clicked together like pieces of a puzzle. The guard at the door, my sister's panic. The groom's parents pretending to be confident, the bribes, the tension hanging in the air. This wasn't a celebration, it was a performance, and the people on stage couldn't even afford the theater. I rinsed my hands in the sink, removed my apron, and stepped away from the prep table. No one noticed me leaving. No one tried to stop me. I walked toward the elevator that led to the hotel's top floor, where the executive offices were located. It was a private level most of the people downstairs didn't even know existed. As the elevator doors closed, I caught one final glimpse of my sister spinning through the room, desperately trying to control everything, but she couldn't control what was coming. "That is enough," I murmured to myself as the elevator began to rise. It was time for the truth to begin its shift. The top floor was completely silent, nothing like the chaotic ballroom below. The carpets were thick enough to absorb every footstep. The air smelled faintly of lemon cleaner instead of stress and panic. When I stepped out of the elevator, the atmosphere changed instantly. Downstairs, I had been invisible. Up here, I was the person who decided whether the world below continued to operate. I pressed my finger against the security sensor. The office door unlocked with a quiet click. The room looked exactly as it had that morning. Clean lines, gray chairs, large windows overlooking the entire city skyline. A space designed for calm decisions instead of chaos. I walked toward the wall of monitors. With a few taps on the control panel, every camera in the hotel began streaming live footage. The executive floor was very quiet, not like the noisy room downstairs. The carpets were thick and soaked up all the sound. The hallway smelled like lemon cleaner instead of stress. When I got off the elevator, the feeling changed immediately. Downstairs, I was a person no one noticed. Up here, I was the person who decided if the world below even existed. I put my finger on the sensor, and the office door opened with a click. The room looked the same as it did this morning. It had simple lines, gray furniture, and windows from the floor to the ceiling that looked over the city. It was a place for thinking clearly, not for a mess. I walked to the wall of screens. I tapped a few buttons, and every camera in the hotel showed me what was happening. I saw the ballroom doors, the kitchen, the sound booth, and the back halls. I rewound the video from the ballroom until I found the right spot. There she was. The mother of the groom was standing close to a worker near the sound station. She slid something into his hand. It was $1,500 in cash. He nodded quickly and looked around like a guilty child. She pointed at the microphone and then at my sister, who was fixing flowers again. The worker put the money in his pocket and plugged a small device into the control board. It was sabotage. It was sabotage. It was planned and practiced to fix it. How? Like make someone look bad. I felt my heartbeat slower. It didn't speed up. It slowed down the way it does when anger turns into a sharp plan. I switched to another screen that showed the event bills. A note flashed on the screen. It said the payment was returned because there was not enough money. The ballroom was decorated in gold, but the truth was written in one line of text. Then another file blinked. It was a report from earlier today. I opened it. There were unpaid bills, mortgages on top of mortgages, and lots of debt. Their old money was just borrowed time and fake pride. Their big house on the other coast was almost gone. The bank was one letter away from taking everything. I leaned back and breathed out. My sister did not know this. She was chasing a dream, but she was blind to the holes in it. She didn't see that they looked at her like a life raft to save them from drowning. I didn't blame her, but I wasn't going to let her drown in their debt. I called the security team and kept my voice even. I told them to save the video from the sound booth. Then I called the general manager. I told him to wait for my signal before talking about the $95,000 bill that bounced. Everything would be handled the right way. This wasn't revenge for being treated badly at the door. This was a correction. It was time for the truth to show up. Before going back down, I stood at the window. The ballroom lights looked like a shiny lie. They still thought I was a server. They thought I didn't belong. They had no idea the ground had already moved under them. The elevator doors opened on the ballroom level and the heat hit me. Everything was noise and movement. Guests held drinks like trophies. The laughter sounded fake. No one saw me step out. I was still a ghost in the clothes they gave me. Perfect. I walked slowly with an empty tray to keep the act going. The younger brother of the groom was still at the bar. When he saw me, he grinned and moved his lips in a gross way. If he only knew. My sister was in the middle of the room. She was fixing the flower arches like perfection could save the night. She looked worried and hopeful. She kept looking at the mother of the groom to see what she thought. That woman stood tall with her chin up like a blade. She looked around like she was checking a house she wanted to buy. She didn't see the cracks under her feet. She didn't notice the worker she bribed was acting nervous near the sound booth. Her plan was about to start, but mine was already moving. The ballroom doors opened. The general manager walked in. He held a folder with both hands like it had bad news inside. He looked at the crowd and then his eyes locked on me. My sister waved for him to come over. She stepped forward to hear his update, but the manager walked right past her. He only looked at me. "Casey," he said loudly. People at the tables gasped. I let the quiet stay for a moment. Then I folded the apron, put it on the bar, and stood up straight in my sweatshirt. Suddenly, the room saw me. Not fully, but they felt something change. "Yes," I answered calmly. "I'm listening." He opened the folder. The event payment was returned. Insufficient funds for the $95,000. "We need direction on how to proceed." I let the quiet stay in the room for a moment. Then I took off my apron, put it on top of the bar, and pulled my sweatshirt straight. In an instant, everyone was looking at me. They didn't understand it all yet, but they could feel that things had changed. "Yes," I said in a steady voice, "I am listening." The manager opened the folder in his hands. The payment for this event was sent back. It was for $95,000. There were insufficient funds. "We need to know what you want us to do now." The ballroom went completely still. It wasn't just quiet. It felt like everyone stopped breathing at the same time. The mother of the groom looked like someone had just slapped her across the face. The father of the groom stared at the floor. The younger brother suddenly stood up straight. My sister stopped in the middle of a step and her face was full of confusion. I reached into my pocket and grabbed my phone. I linked it to the big screens in the ballroom. The monitors blinked and then showed the security videos. It showed shots from the hallway, the bar, and the area where the sound was controlled. Then the picture got bigger on one spot. It showed the mother of the groom leaning in and putting $1,500 into a worker's hand. She was pointing at the microphone stand. The video showed the worker putting a small tool into the soundboard. You could see her lips moving as she gave him orders. The people in the room reacted like a wave hitting the sand. First, there was a low sound. Then everyone was talking over each other, and then it went totally silent. My sister made a small noise that sounded like she was shocked and hurt. The groom looked at his mother and his eyes were wide with horror. "What did you do?" he asked her. She did not say anything back. "I didn't stop there. There is more," I said. I tapped the screen again. Public records filled up the big monitors. There were mortgages on top of other mortgages, late bills, and warnings from banks. There was even a notice saying the bank was taking their house. "These people are not the wealthy family they claim to be," I said quietly. "They plan to use this wedding and my sister to fix their own money problems." The guests started whispering. They were shocked, and some seemed happy to see the drama. The groom stepped away from his parents like he just realized he was standing on the edge of a cliff. My sister looked at the screens and she was shaking. "You knew about this," she said to me. "I made sure it was true tonight," I told her, but the signs were easy to see. The mother of the groom finally broke. "This is an invasion of privacy. How dare you?" she yelled. "These are public records," I said back. "Anyone can find them." Before she could speak again, I tapped the last video. It showed her going through my sister's purse. The room gasped. People started whispering more. My sister looked like she was going to fall over. "Why would you go through my things?" she asked. The mother of the groom didn't answer. Her lips were stuck in a thin line. That was when I walked into the middle of the ballroom. "This night should not have been about how things look," I said, but tonight it became about something worse. It became about lies and tricks. I looked right at the mother of the groom. "You tried to ruin someone else's name just to protect your own. You tried to use my sister, and you tried to mess with an event in a building that you didn't know belongs to me." The mother of the groom froze. My sister blinked and tried to understand. "You own this place?" she asked. I nodded and told her I own the whole chain. A look of shock moved across her face slowly. She felt surprised, confused, and guilty. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked. "I tried," I said in a soft voice, "but you were too worried about what I was wearing to hear about what I have done with my life." Her chin started to shake. The groom turned toward me. "I swear I didn't know they were doing this. If I had." "This isn't about you choosing sides," I interrupted. "This is about choosing truth." I looked at the mother of the groom again. "Because of what you did tonight, you have two choices," I said, and she got very stiff. "One, you leave right now without a word, and I will pay for the whole party as a gift for my sister. Two, I report the sabotage, the fraud, and the bad check to the police." Her husband grabbed her arm. "Let's go," he said. She didn't fight him. She walked toward the door, and you could hear her shoes hitting the floor as she left in defeat. The younger brother ran out after them. The groom stayed behind. He turned to my sister and had tears in his eyes. "I don't care about the money. I care about you. I want to build a life with you on our own terms, not theirs," he told her. My sister started to cry and held on to him. Then she turned back to me. "I am so sorry for everything. For not seeing you, for not listening, for letting my insecurity turn you into something smaller in my mind," she said. I walked over and pulled her into my arms. She cried even harder. "You are not small," I whispered. "You just forgot who you were. Tonight was a reminder." Behind us, the guests started talking again. The band played some quiet music. A few workers gave me a nod to say thanks. The room felt different now. The party had turned into a lesson. My sister looked up at me. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now," I said, "you choose a future built on honesty instead of image." The groom took her hand. "I want that too," he said. I told them they should start from the ground up together. As they stood there being real and humble, I felt a weight leave me. This was not about revenge, it was about clarity. The room got empty fast after that. The groom's parents left and didn't look back. They left their fake image behind. The workers moved around and felt better, like someone finally let fresh air into a stuffy room. My sister and her fiancé stayed with me. They didn't look fancy anymore. They were just two people standing in the middle of a night that almost broke them. In that moment, something real finally showed up. The next morning, my sister came to the hotel in plain clothes. She asked where she should start working. I pointed her toward the housekeeping department. She didn't say no. She wanted to understand the people she had spoken over and ignored. the groom went to work with the accounting team. He wanted to face the numbers his family always ran away from. Weeks went by. They moved into a small apartment and paid their own rent. They learned how to shop with coupons and laughed when they burned their dinner. I watched them become better people. The groom's family lost their big house on the other coast to foreclosure. They moved away to live a quiet life. Justice was not loud. It happened quietly, which is how the truth likes to work. 1 year later, my sister got married in the hotel garden. There were no big lights or fake shows. There was just sun, a few friends, and a promise that was real. She walked through the service entrance on purpose that day. She was smiling because she finally knew where her real life started. I stood in the back and watched her step into a future she picked for herself. For the first time in a long time, everything felt right.